YouTube frogs, welcome back to another complete guide, this time covering everything you need to know about our genius of the academia, Cyno. This video contains core basics covered in the first impressions and general review video and data from the weapon comparisons video, so if you want to check those out as well, links will be in the description. We'll be fine-tuning his talent design, playstyle nuances and Electro application, optimal weapons and artifacts, constellations, team comps, and a gameplay showcase. Let's begin. At Constellation 0 to Constellation 6, Cyno is an on-field Electro melee DPS, weaving in constant elemental skill procs within his normal attack rotation to produce high-volume Electro attacks on a 22 to 26 second rotation. Due to his extremely long 18 seconds on-field time, he prefers dedicated off-field supports able to set up reactions and survivability for him to be sustainable during the duration. His multipliers are attack percent focused and scale with standard crit damage, damage percent, and elemental mastery for nearly all parts of his damage. Normal attack and charge attack. Since Cyno's burst provides him with a separate set of multipliers than his normal attack ones, this talent becomes effectively useless. The damage within his burst does still count as normal attack damage, not burst damage, meaning he still gains benefits from sets like 4-piece Gladiator, even though this talent will remain at level 1. Elemental skill, Chasmic Sulfare. So off burst, Cyno lunges forward, dealing single target electro damage to enemies caught in the path, generating 3 electro orbs before going on his 7.5 second cooldown. When he's in his burst, Cyno's ability becomes Mortuary Rite, and he slams downwards, dealing AoE electro damage around him with a 20% damage increase over his non-burst multiplier. Mortuary Rite has a significantly shorter cooldown at 3 seconds, generates mostly 1 electro orb with a small chance at 2 orbs, collectible within his burst, and extends his burst by 4 seconds up to a maximum of 18 seconds. Then we get to his elemental burst. So activating this, Cyno enters the path clearer state. He gains Electro Infusion, 100 flat increased elemental mastery, interruption resistance, immunity to electro charge damage, and is able to activate his Ascension 1 passive, Featherfall Judgment at 3.5 second intervals. During this period, his elemental skill becomes Mortuary Rite, and he uses a unique set of normal attack multipliers defined in this burst talent. Reminder that these multipliers do not count as burst damage, but rather normal attack damage. If Mortuary Rite is activated while his Ascension 1 Eye of Anubis passive glows across your screen, the ability deals 35% increased damage and fires 3 single target Duststalker bolts, dealing 100% attack multiplier electro damage. This enhanced elemental skill can maintain a total multiplier of 550+% if all of these bolts hit. This passive damage is incredibly significant, and usage at these proper intervals accounts for 40 to 60% of his total within burst damage, higher on the Thundering Fury set, lower on the non-Thundering Fury set. Mortuary Rite can on average be activated 4 to 8 times during his burst depending on the rough combo rotation you choose. Standard non-Thundering Fury rotation consists of the following: E into Q into N plus into E into N5 plus E 4 times. So the plus refers to a continued normal attack spam until your elemental skill is ready to be used. The first E will be non-enhanced, while the last 4 should be used when A1 passive glows on your screen. This totals 5 Mortuary Rite procs, 4 of which are enhanced. On the other side, standard Thundering Fury rotation consists of the following: E into Q into N plus into E into N4 plus E by 7. In this rotation, N5 is cut out to allow time for 2 elemental skill procs per 1 Ascension 1 passive proc. With higher attack speed, N5E by 7 is able to be pulled off. This totals 8 Mortuary Rite procs, 4 of which are enhanced in an alternating fashion. As for his Electro application and internal cooldown rules, Cyno's burst normal attack and Ascension 1 Duststalker bolts follow the normal 3 hits per 2.5 seconds per application. The exception is his elemental skill's initial hit, which is one of these 2 multipliers. They look to have no internal cooldown, noticeable in the Thundering Fury demo where it's able to proc Aggravate on every slam down. Taking this into account, Aggravate playstyles, Thundering Fury or not, are generally preferred due to their near guaranteed boost of damage during his enhanced A1 Mortuary Rites. At level 6, his standard non-Thundering Fury rotation with 4 Ascension 1 passive procs combines for an estimated total of 5,200% multiplier value over 18 seconds. This is assuming that every single Duststalker bolt hits for 100% of its MV. His Thundering Fury rotation combo with the same 4 A1 passive procs combines for an estimated total of 6,700% multiplier value over 18 seconds. These totals are assuming that every part of his combo connects with the enemy, even though the Thundering Fury rotation has a roughly 30% total multiplier gain over non-Thundering Legendary Fairy, the artifact set itself provides a 10 to 15% DPS loss over other dedicated DPS sets like Thunder Soother or Gilded Dreams. Only caveat for all of this is, of course, his incredibly long on-field duration of 18 seconds, which is a 10-second base extended twice with 2 elemental skills and a general cooldown of 20 seconds. Team rotations will usually be about 24 to 26 seconds, assuming perfect energy funneling and off-field setup. And while the 80 energy cost seems high, his elemental skill procs slightly negate the issue by generating energy within his burst, being his energy requirements lower than most 80 cost burst users. I typically find that 120% recharge is enough with double Electro team compositions, favoring 130 to 150% if he's not. Substats will be very hard to achieve though, so I wouldn't expect the average player to be above 110 to 120. Lastly, Cyno's Ascension 4 passive allows for extra scaling from his Elemental Mastery into his Burst Normal Attack and Duststalker Bolt procs. These are flat ammo bonuses like Shenhe Yunjin, and scale into his damage bonuses from crit damage and elemental and related. This passive is a large reason why his Duststalker Bolt procs do significant amounts of damage, accounting for 30 to 50% of his total elemental skill damage. Now, talent priority. Elemental Burst greater than equal to Elemental Skill, and the normal attack and charge attack is useless. Elemental Burst level is responsible for his multipliers, and his Elemental Skill accounts for basically half of his in-burst damage output. So both of these should be leveled as high as possible, and for my Cyno mains out there, I would crown his Burst first. The increase is a multiplicative 7% per burst level, meaning even at the highest levels, his burst talent still gains a 7% DPS increase. As an example, you can see the difference on the N1 from level 1 to 2 and from 9 to 10. It's 78.3 to 84.7, which is a 5% increase at level 1 to 2, but it's 143.8 to 154.8 at 9 to 10, which is 11%. Now that his basics have been covered, here's what I would recommend your stat thresholds be. Attack percent, which is the green value, at 60 to 110% of the base attack value, which is the white value. 60% if you're running an Elemental Mastery timepiece, and 110% if you're running attack percent timepiece or from weapon substats. Crit rate at least at 70%. Crit damage at least 180 to 220 plus %. You'll get some crit damage from Ascension stat and from a crit rate crit damage weapon that will affect your circlet choice. Elemental Mastery, I would say 200 plus. You'll get some from the timepiece or the weapon, plus a few substats. And the energy recharge, anywhere between 100 to 120 to 150. These are going to be substats only. Mine with the white tassel, sitting at 60% attack, 72 crit rate, 213 crit damage, 268 elemental mastery, and 124% recharge. With his signature, his crit rate jumps to 90%. And since Dendro reactions scale very effectively with level, I do recommend going all the way to level 90 out of 90 instead of stopping at the level 80 efficient cap. This maximizes the additive damage gained from aggravates and caps his crit damage ascension bonus. Alright, it's time to build them up. Since weapons are now getting more and more tailored to specific character types, my recommendations will be focused on highest practicality for actual use. If you'd like to see how all of his practical polearms compare, my weapon comparisons video will be in the description. I'll be jumping straight into the strongest practical weapons I would recommend you use for him. So for my early game budget and the quote, I just want to try out Cyno, unquote players, 3-star White Tassel will grant the most efficient value for resources spent, as its damage output is impressively comparable to most of the 4-star options. It provides a really easy source of crit rate and an easily refinable massive normal attack steroid that boosts a good 40 to 50% of his within burst rotation. So, not shown here, but Cyno's best 4-star craftable options. Both Moon Piercer and Ketane Cross Spear are excellent F2P craftable options for him. They both carry the exact same base attack and secondary elemental mastery stat. Ketane Cross boosts elemental skill damage and also provides a slight bit of flat energy. Moon Piercer provides a small lootable buff for slight attack percent available every 20 seconds, fitting snugly within Cyno's usual rotation. And if you don't want to use White Tassel and don't want to spend resources to craft a weapon, we'll have a 3.1 event-free Missive Wind Spear that will be a perfect stat stick for Cyno. Provides a reaction-based attack percent and elemental mastery buff for the active character, which is essentially free for Cyno's playstyle. So, besides these weapons, we have crit options like Blackcliff and Deathmatch available by Star Glitter and a Battle Pass. Deathmatch is a great universal option with an amazing crit rate secondary stat and universal passive, while I wouldn't really recommend the Blackcliff as it's outclassed by other more easily accessible options. For my players with 5-star weapon options, any of the DPS choices are fine. Scarlet Sands will not only be the strongest choice, but it has a huge crit rate advantage over any other option provided. Builds will easily be able to achieve the 70 to 90% crit rate with Scarlet Sands, making it exceptionally consistent for Cyno's high volume, spam heavy damage output. Jade Spear comes at a close second, with an expectedly high total damage rotation. However, it does fall behind the Scarlet Sands by a significant amount of crit rate. The damage that you are seeing from the Jade Spear and the Scarlet Sands is assuming all crits, so in an actual situation, Scarlet Sands will be significantly stronger because it has 20% crit rate increase. After these two 5 stars, we have what I would call the quote leftover polearms. These are weapons that are used because they are decent, and that's all you really have. So, Shenhe's signature, Calamity Queller, is a weaker version of the Jade Spear. Vortex Vanquisher is plenty powerful, but it does require Zhongli's shield, which is the longest duration shield that can last during his burst. Staff of Homa is always going to look good on DPS no matter what, and the Skyward Spine if you don't have any other option and you already leveled it to 90. So even though most of Cyno's practical weapons are in the 5-star category, I would say that he is fairly budget friendly, since the options available in 3-star and 4-star are very easily accessible and pretty easy to build around and decently strong. Now for his artifact sets and stat choices. So we have 4 very solid 4-piece choices that either optimize a certain playstyle or provide raw damage output. 4-piece Thundering Fury. Any reaction-based Cyno team comp can make use of this pretty effectively, not just aggravates. Due to the high volume of attacks and ICD ignore on his elemental skill, Cyno turns out exceptional elemental skill reset value from this set, making for a faster elemental skill spam playstyle and higher ceiling for DPS. Then we have 4-piece Thunder Soother. Universal 35% bonus against Electro afflicted enemies. This is one of Cyno's strongest universal artifact sets that uses his standard combo rotation. Any team composition can make use of this set. 4-piece Gilded Dreams. This is the universal balance of elemental mastery and attack percent stat stick depending on the team comp, providing the highest raw elemental mastery to improve his reaction related damage. Any team composition can make use of this set, and since it provides the highest raw elemental mastery, Scarlet Sand's signature weapon actually enjoys this set the most. 4-piece Gladiator set provides 18% attack and 35% normal attack damage boost, which is similar to Thunder Soother but less universal. The 35% normal attack damage boost does not influence the elemental skill portion of his damage, meaning effectively only 40 to 50% of his DPS output gets affected by this. This makes 4-piece Gladiator slightly worse than Thunder Soother in nearly every situation. Still a great choice if you've got an old finished sets lying around. So, those of you still working towards one of these 4-piece sets, feel free to run any of the following 2-piece options. We have any attack percent, which we have 4 of, any 80 elemental mastery 2-piece set, we have Wanderers and Gilded, and then Thundering Fury 2-piece. And for my newer below AR45 players out there, we have 2 to 4-piece Berserker, 2-piece Instructor, and any 2-piece attack percent set will work as a good starting point. Main stat choices. So Cyno's main stat choices are pretty standardized besides some slight optimizations the better your artifacts get. The most contentious part lies in his timepiece choice between attack percent and elemental mastery. In general, attack percent and EM are so close in terms of DPS that you just choose whatever you have the better substats for. If you are down though to min-max the slightest amount of DPS, then 2 general rules of thumb apply. The higher the base attack of the weapon, the stronger attacker percent timepiece will be. The more attack percent you have from weapon secondary stats, artifact set buffs, and team buffs, the weaker attack percent timepiece will be. Second, the more reactive your composition is, with high favor towards aggravate and Dendro related compositions, the stronger elemental mastery timepiece is. Common weapon choices with low base attack, like Scarlet Sands, Deathmatch, and White Tassel, favor elemental mastery timepiece because they gain less from an attack percent timepiece. Because there are so many different factors that constantly change depending on weapon, composition choice, your artifact substats, the simplest advice is to use your strongest substat piece. Since I prefer using him in aggravate related compositions, I will always opt for an elemental mastery timepiece. So in general, this is how I'd flesh out his stats. If you're running low base attack, for example Scarlet Sands, or you're running aggravate compositions, then elemental mastery, electro, and then crit rate crit damage. If you're running high base attack, for example Calamity Queller, and you have low attack percent generally, and you're less reactive on your compositions, then attack, electro, and crit rate crit damage. If your substats are absolutely insane, and you're running Scarlet Sands weapon, and you have a high crit value elemental mastery circlet, then you can run elemental mastery, electro, elemental mastery. For substats, aim for 70% crit rate plus first, then 120% recharge, which is about 3 total substats, and then crit damage substats, elemental mastery, and attack percent. If you're running elemental mastery circlet with the Scarlet Sands, make sure you're able to keep 70 to 75 crit rate and 150 plus crit damage. So, for Cyno, his Constellations are front-loaded before Constellation 6, meaning he gains the most personal value by Constellation 2 instead of at Constellation 4 or higher. Because he's one of our longest on-field DPS characters, he gains the most value from strict improvements to damage during that time frame. Don't worry, his gameplay does not change during any of his Constellations. They are more like quality of life upgrades that improve his damage at each stage. Constellation 1, he gains a 20% attack speed boost within his burst, refreshable whenever his elemental skill is successfully enhanced by his Ascension 1 I passive. While this may seem like super high value, it only affects his normal attacks within his burst. Because about 50% or more of his damage is dealt by his enhanced elemental skills, which occur at set intervals, this attack speed has less value than it may seem. It still does contribute to more forgiving optimizations to his tougher Thundering Fury rotation combos, but I estimate no more than a 10% DPS increase. Constellation 2. Basically a universal 50% electro damage bonus. It stacks super quickly inside or outside of his burst and maintains as long as his normal attack continues to hit. His strongest early Constellation contributing to a 35% DPS increase. Constellation 3 and 5, burst +3 levels and elemental skill +3 levels respectively. Constellation 4, proccing an electro-related reaction within his burst recovers 3 flat energy for only party members, not himself. It's slightly quality of life for his teammates for how greedy his on-field time is. Constellation 6, Cyno basically gets free Duststalker bolt procs once per normal attack. He starts with 4 Jackal stacks and gains 4 more each time his Ascension 1 passive I procs. He can only hold 8 at one time and uses 1 stack per normal attack to do an additional 100% attack multiplier value. Over the course of his burst, he'll proc about 4 Ascension 1 passives, meaning a total of 4 Jackal from his burst and 16 from these A1 passive Jackal procs. So each proc deals about 100% multiplier value, increasing his total burst output by 2000% multiplier value. At level 6, his non-Thundering Fury rotation deals about 5,200% multiplier value, and his Thundering Fury rotation can maximize at 6.7 to 7,000%. So this Constellation can be seen as a 30 to 40% DPS increase, which is slightly lower the higher your talent is. So overall, I find this Constellation to be decently solid. He has an early Constellation 2 significant DPS gain, and then another one at Constellation 6, with swipe quality of life at Constellation 1 and Constellation 4. Team compositions. As an elemental scaling Electro DPS, Cyno prefers to be involved in reaction-heavy teams. While he can suffice on non-Dendro reaction compositions, like Taser, his elemental scaling effectiveness and DPS output is quite reduced in comparison to Aggravate or Bloom-related comps. As is most obvious then, he really wants someone who can maintain long-duration, off-field Dendro application without requiring much of their own field time to replenish their energy. Currently, we don't have many options in this field, with Dendro MC being the best choice. The good thing is, this pairing of Cyno plus Dendro MC unlocks a lot of general compositions and doubles as being incredibly fun and rewarding to play for Cyno users. The safest and most common composition you'll probably see involves Cyno, Dendro MC, Fischl, and Zhongli. Dendro MC for Dendro, Fischl for the off-field DPS and double Electro, and Zhongli for long-duration shield that will be his only source of survivability. The shield doubles as an additional -20% Electro res for that extra DPS. Variations of this composition can swap Zhongli out for Kazuha for higher DPS healing. Even though Kazuha won't be able to shred for Cyno's entire burst duration, the damage amplification during the first half and buff to Fischl's damage is incredibly substantial. Now going back to just the Cyno and DMC pair, we can also include variations of Hyperbloom that involve normal attack-based supports. Xingqiu/Yelan are perfect solo self-sustainable Hydro supports with long-duration burst abilities that proc on normal attack. These will be the driver for the blooms while also dealing substantial off-field DPS. You can pair this in the last slot with double Electro like Beta or Fischl, or an Anemo support like Kazuha Sucrose, or Zhongli for a shield, and you'll be set. Notice that in these variations, they don't have a dedicated healer on the team. Without Zhongli, you'll be either relying on Xingqiu's Rain Sword sub-healing or on your own dodge mechanics to minimize damage taken. And from my testing experience, energy is typically a non-issue in these teams, as Cyno still generates a decent chunk of energy from within his burst, and your team includes at least one Favonius weapon user. And finally, Cyno does happen to do well in the National comp, or should I say, Cynational. Against larger enemies unaffected by knockback, Cyno can be the driver in the National comp composed of Bennett, Xiangli, and Xingqiu. The rotations are long enough to use most of Cyno's burst duration, and while the energy is a bit tight, it isn't as suffocating as you'd expect. Is he the best choice here? No. Is it still super fun? Absolutely. Well, let's take a look at a showcase of these compositions. My Cyno will be running a 4 Thundering Fury set with the Scarlet Sands and using reduced elemental skill cooldown where applicable. My rotations won't be perfect, as I'll have to dodge around and reposition, but that's the fun with Cyno's kit. Follows a 1 I passive, spam your abilities, and most importantly, have fun. Cue the music, Mr. Cope. And that about sums things up. I've personally been enjoying his playstyle quite a bit with his close combat fighting style and own little minigame with his A1 passive. While he may not hit the absolute hardest, his compositions enable some really fun playstyles that are, for the most part, pretty self-sustainable and allow him to be super greedy with his on-field time. Both his weapons and artifacts have a nice selection of budget choices, allowing for easy build paths to get him up and running. That is, if you can find those pesky little scarabs in Sumeru. That wraps up all my general findings and concludes my series of general info videos on Cyno. Really appreciate all your support, and if you made it to the end, don't forget to subscribe. Really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you next time. Take care.